Venerable Geshe Tsultim Gyeltsen, Tenzin Dorjee Translator, Shankyo Pardo Dane Shasu Dage Cheke Jebe Sonam Dola Pesha Saje Do Para Sho Sanje Chedon Soje Chonam Shankyo Pardo Dane Shasu Dage Cheke Jebe Sonam Dola Pesha Saje Do Para Ola so majona gitara ne be senje tanji tendo to jalana me bayanda wa zubi sanji kumbaro me kene je to brashago de to brashawi chedo tambe chero mo jesenya be kono chanju jisemji se sembe gonne sempre kyo.
We must strive to accomplish complete enlightenment for the sake of liberating infinite, kind, mother sentient beings. And it's with that kind of altruistic motivation, we call bodhicitta motivation, that we should all participate in this teaching.
That Madam Tomalo and the Chu Duguris, in a Chu Duya Tata, Chu and Itambota, and in Ramsatan, Chu Yamsalanja to Nambi Church, Sonsa, that Ali Tambo Nambi to the Tsubala Ani. Confusion of Shambushi education, but that is Hamani Q.
We all need to cultivate spirituality or Dharma, and the type of spirituality that we are talking about here is that of that which originated with Buddha Shakyamuni, and in other words, it's called Buddhism. And in order to be able to become a Buddhist practitioner, if you will, fundamentally we need to take refuge in the three jewels or triple gems, Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, because taking refuge in the three jewels is entering into Buddhist path. If you ask where do we begin, maybe Dharma or spirituality or thinking about, the answer to that question is we need to reflect on impermanence or transitoriness.
Lajeta J Tamjinan and the Lambuchi J Chulchavang, still Nayig, the heat Taji Nani, and Matabin the heat Chulchavang is Kana.
In other words, maybe one of the major factors that could initiate us into spirituality or Dharma is to understand and reflect on impermanence of life and things, which obviously includes thinking about death and dying. As it is stated very clearly in Lamrim treatises, Lamrim meaning stages of the path to enlightenment, giving this example of how, if you look at all the footprints of animals, so to speak, those of elephants are the largest footprints. In the same way, if we look across all types of recognition, the one which is very powerful, large in the sense of powerful recognition, is that of that which relates to impermanence of life and things.
So that language that mistake language that machine colon. Masih terpaksa mampu juga salah tu, ane pan rosak langgar terus sam tansi, telin jiwan dapat ten dua, ane condition rotan dapat condition rogo, tu sama lo, kalau setop ke, kalau jangdok ke mati, setop ke ane susu, dah ini singgu yoris, tu tampu sam tanin rogo yoris.
When we say that the largest footprints of animals are those of elephants, we are talking about a special kind of elephants who from their very birth have certain awareness and skills to figure out the distance from one point to another point, and if there are going to be any dangers on the way, and how to avoid those dangers or face those dangers. So in the same way, awareness of impermanence is perhaps the largest awareness, in the sense is the most powerful awareness that initiates us into Dharma.
Tang ngaram tu jula, ni ngaram tu jula. Dushe mangbo chiyor te ti nania, ta matabin dushe te, ane ran le chul java chingu, kari yungu, kari sena matabin dushe te chembu jiran yu chavi na, ti ini chule, te den pa na routine, chua tinki de chaguyor.
We could cultivate many different types of awareness, but of them all, cultivating awareness of impermanence of life and things, which include death and dying, that becomes a very powerful awareness, and especially that it could lead us into spiritual development. No.
Yes. Ninju. Okay. That thing is correct, isn't tam maranso ke ane tam mataba chezang mataba gombate ke chimbu chaguris. Correct is the mataba gomni. Tam yonda tembi ina ane chue maje bashene zan dem masuyata. Chue shabating number tabaji. Ta chue namda kile. Royat ane matabin the shik. So that's
why in Buddhism we give so much importance to cultivating awareness of death and dying and impermanence of life and things, because once we study it and we meditate on it, and we started to generate awareness of impermanence, and we started to gain certain experiences through that. Those experiences become very powerful in terms of our spiritual growth or development. For example, in two ways. As we become very aware of impermanence of life and things, then we feel the sense of urgency to cultivate Dharma or spirituality. We are not going to procrastinate our practice of Dharma, to some later date. And two, such experiences awareness will intensify our spirituality and practice.
So that madaba gondi tani ngepar chewa sampas dikse. Ta ani namche ngeme sampas ta nimba di namche ngeme sampas. Ta somba de ani chewe chena chema to yen kangya ta pemba mebaji do sam tangko verda.
we meditate on the impermanence of life, there are certain key elements of the factors that we need to take into consideration. We need to understand and reflect on how death is certain in our case. In other words, that our life will surely come to an end. There is a certainty about it, certitude about it. Another essential point to be considered regarding the same matter is that the time of death is uncertain. In other words, we really don't know when our life is going to come to an end. And the third point that we need to consider is, should death strike us, which could happen any time, except for spirituality or dharma, nothing can really stand by us, and nothing can really go with us into our future lives. Now, as we talk about, meditating on impermanence, death, and dying, broadly stating, there are two types of meditation. One is what we call analytical meditation, chegom in Tibetan, and the other is called single-pointed meditation or placement meditation called jogom. Of these two types of meditation, we should be engaging in analytical meditation as we reflect on the impermanence of life and things. So we need to analyze impermanence of life and engage in analytical meditation on different aspects of the impermanence of life. And I mentioned three key points here. The number one is the certainty of death. Well, in a general sense that we all, I would think, know that one day we are going to die. While that is not enough as an understanding, we really need to develop what we call, certitude in this understanding that death is sure to come to us. And so as we analyze this particular aspect of impermanence of our life, we can consider, how great bodhisattvas, have, have passed away. And we can also think in terms of Buddhas, enlightened beings, how they have enacted the rules of death and dying, and many Buddhas have also gone, by. We can think in terms of those who are very powerful and influential, such as kings and queens of the past, and maybe the political leaders of the today. Many big names and big shots and big powerful ones, all those biggies, many of them are gone. we also bring the whole idea home and think of our own family and lineage that, we think in terms of our great-grandparents, we think in terms of our grandparents, our parents, and most of them are gone, not with us. So now what is left is one day is going to be our turn. Our life will surely come to an end just as their life, ended.
No. That they love what you ta. Such a name but the Tandos in the Nanching him as some of the chambers. Should chose somebody re chamber the United Nania. Nanching him as somebody. Nanching him as that. Kadushi and the Kadushi Mute, when the Chato and Mavra, sometimes it is Shamanic, and then when Kang Chamis, that Nikan and the one. The Ganay Naratan and they can do in the room dinner day or was. In a young answer, they Naloya and Jew or the Inama, 20 Mike Tenko, Miki Shin, Martin, Aneta, Roti Chani, Martin, Hakway Amaras. The next on Congress, John Rimbo Pames, the Katatun to Chile. Ma deni ya lonju shona me yon nye da me trin dan dem dan ro mi solution de yer sani eni kar charu ma ko me da ni ani patun du son tang ni da kyusu ndil dan ngara dem ya bo shi dam me rang shin de yer de yin kyusu nim ba dan di yuma de kyusu de ani da shewa shama ro tan me rang shi de yon da cha to me ba ngoni re da ti san tong ko do ta gom je di ngoni to ne cha ma ta ba gon za tan de shi ni pe ta congress ya la ni ta kare ina do sha nyen du shalom kare she we na ani ta ta sa ma lo pa ta cha ma ta ba gon za tel pen to ba chi shin san tong re.
So, but considering the things which I just kind of highlighted, so we investigate what does it mean that death is certain, and how does that principle or the fact, it applies to my own life. So it is in that way we develop, the definitive understanding of death and really strong belief that it is sure thing to happen. And let's move on to the next key point I mentioned, uncertainty of the time of death. For us practitioners, this is even more important to be reflected upon in our meditation. Now, right now, what I'm explaining to you is how to do an analytical meditation on death and dying and impermanence of life. So what does, uncertainty of the time of death means? As I mentioned earlier to you, that means that we do not know when we are going to die. We cannot predict that. Okay? We don't have that knowledge. It could happen anytime. And as it is stated elsewhere, very profoundly, in a very nice poetic form in Tibetan, of course, I don't know how much justice I can do in my translation, but it says, Sangda jigden chimani. When we think in terms of, tomorrow and next life, we really don't know which one is going to come first. Whether tomorrow is going to come first or the next life. So therefore, instead of working for tomorrow, which we don't know about whether it's going to come first, we should work for the next life. So what this is really teaching us is that the time of death is really uncertain. So we need to prepare really well for our death, because that could come to us anytime. And let me make it more immediate here in the sense, as we are meditating on this. Right now we are all sitting in this monastery, and we are all breathing, we are all alive. But when we are meditating on death, we really have to consider all these possibilities that right now I'm here, but I'm not sure, whether I will be alive walking out after the teaching, finishes, or whether the bodies will go out instead of me being alive. We really don't know. And so we also need to consider that, in all circumstances, that when I sit down, I really don't know when I will be able to get up. Or when I'm walking, I really don't know when I get a chance to sit down. So we really need to seriously consider all the situations and possibilities as we, reflect on the impermanence of life. So we might be thinking that, well, tomorrow I'm going to do this and that, all that. But the fact of the matter is, we really don't know whether there is going to be tomorrow for us. And, we could be thinking that after a few hours, like when this teaching is over, I'm going to do this and that, but we really don't know what is going to happen in the next few hours, whether we will be alive, to do the things we plan to do. So this is how we really meditate on the death and dying and the uncertainty of the time of death.
That in so there's a day, Nate, Tandang around the Dazon day or day. That's honey in me in the chick, Dazuneta. Tandang around so Sayata, Koyata, Samal Suzuki tradition, you are was in a and they in that's honey, me in that chick pay. I need to launch it, socially, you belong to me in that chick, Dagu Jig. Jetta Jig Marissa touches on everyone. Making that like one dry mato, socio in the one, did you made the chat? That is something.
And we need to really consider these things that, how we are so kind of attached to and possessive of all the things we own. Well, this is my house and my property. Well, maybe at this moment, but we don't know whether we are going to be there tomorrow to claim our ownership to the house and the property. Because tomorrow we may not be there. Now the house and the property, which we claim as ours this very moment, may belong very well to somebody else. People we don't know. Right now we are wearing all these clothes we call my clothes. I'm wearing them. But tomorrow we may not be there to say these are my clothes, and these clothes could as well be somebody else's clothes. And today we say, okay, I have so much food here at home, whatever the case may be, but tomorrow we don't know we are there to eat the food, or somebody else will eat the food. So this is how we really go into the details, analyzing things in order to experience, gain certain experiences into the impermanence of life.
No. That is not Tombina. That your temperature is any, and that any send the Ganka shower, then you will never get that. That what we talking about.
So as we do this kind of analytical meditation on the impermanence of life and death, when we develop certain, positive experiences into the different aspects of our impermanent life, then we started to see the frivolous nature of so many worldly things and activities we do or we engage in, because after all, so many things we consider so important and we keep ourselves so busy, they are very limited to this life. They do not have so much of, essence, so to say. There's really no essence in the world, so many worldly activities we engage in.
Ane calling a prinjo, Ginjo she at the Ginjo Samba, numbers of a she at the and then Matabin Hatrini and those in sharing grace.
So when we talk about the need to renounce samsara or single existence, develop aversion to the miseries and problems in samsara, again, this is where meditating on impermanence of life and death becomes so influential and so crucial. So cultivating awareness of death and dying, impermanence of life, could lead us to cultivate renunciation of samsaric existence. So as we consider these key elements about the impermanence about life, yes, death is certain. That is a sure thing to happen, but the time of death is so uncertain, and I really don't know when that is really going to happen. And should it happen, now, or it could happen anytime, so what can really stand by us? What can truly benefit us? So when we consider that matter, then we started to see the importance of practicing Dharma. So when we really consider the matter that death could come to us any time, right now, this very moment, maybe it's not that difficult for us to see how so many things we cherish will fail us. Our resources of the wealth, how much property we own. Well, that's not going to do anything here. Or we think in terms of the friends and relatives and the companions and all the wonderful people we know and who are so dear to us. They won't be going with us. They can't do anything here. Even this body of ourselves, which we cherish so much, which is always with us, is going to fail us. And so, I think it's not that difficult once we look at the situation. If the death strikes us, what will stand by us or will go with us? Then we know that all these cherished things will fail us.
That is a Tangi Saki di Tolmado. Che say, Che Mato Kangijam Fimpas. So it's a Giva, that's on the corner.
So if all these, most cherished things in our life fail us at that crucial moment of life, now we need to consider, is there anything that can really, support us, stand by us, that can go with us? And this is where, as the key point that I mentioned earlier, when the death hits us, except Dharma, nothing stands by us. That makes sense.
I understand what. Lama da tendil mbiwachi mo de pushi so ke maje ta ke ngaranga ke tob mandus ta tangana yenda ki ta so lame ki so ani pe ani ta nge so gudong nyom go ya ta ani khwali thaya ta za khona sangyu kine yaga mendo sam ta sangyu ros ta kinde sangyu ros.
So as we try to face the issues of death straight, now we start to see what all things could happen and what can really stand by us and what cannot. And we want to do anything and everything possible that we think that will help us to face death and help us into our next lives. And this is where, many people think that, really, I have not been able to practice much, and I don't really have the ability to practice. Well, I have, quite a good amount of wealth, so maybe I can make a big offerings to lamas or gurus, and then request them to save me. And so I will do that. I'll make big offerings to the gurus and who others we believe in, so that they will do the thing for me, because I couldn't do it myself.
No. That in the pui. Nami the Jindu and Jebut Ralang about the Junguris. Rete Yena, that rang they Dipade Rang Dipa Sabat, the Mab Zoyatan, the Hana Yelame Pegata, Lama in the sea in a Kanji Pege and around Tabe Compala, Sosu Madu, Shen, Drew Masunia, Tabe Compala, go to his own Maverstati. Sosu never the Sosu Dugugers.
Well, of course, I do not, deny that you accumulate certain amount of merit, if you will, by making those offerings to the lamas you trust and you believe in, and make your request. But having said that, But the underlying assumption that we have that if I make the offerings to gurus, then gurus will save me and liberate me somehow from samsara and put me in the state of enlightenment. Well, that assumption is not operative here. Because, after all, who can liberate oneself from samsara? Who can bring oneself to the complete enlightened state? It's just oneself. We cannot put that responsibility on anybody else, including our gurus, because they cannot do that for us. If we want to be free from samsara, suffering, if we want to be Buddhas, this is the job. If you want to use that word, this is the responsibility we have, and this is what we need to do for ourselves. They could help us, but they cannot make that gift to us.
That the imbatin tagas thing here maris, don't assume your start. Someone look at that, and then dollar that to some ching to some chinking and the king was kingers. This one is dolly. Tuna digba tree mutations, Towas and you come to the namches, and then draw it, don't get any tree tray American.
Yes. So what I'm just explaining to you, that is the fact of the matter. I'm not making anything up here. I'm not cooking up any, new ideas and just making things from my side. If we, take time to study Buddha's teachings in sutras, what he really said about these issues, then we will know what I'm saying. As Buddha said it very clearly, unambiguously in sutras, and Geshe was quoting the stanzas from his memory. Buddha said, Tubnam Digvat Shui Mirushi, Buddhas, enlightened beings, do not and cannot wash your negativities and delusions with water.
Draw singing to do it and doing it good, and the chag never say Maris.
Dove Tunge Chag Misela. They, meaning Buddhas, cannot remove the suffering of sentient beings with their hands. They cannot do that.
Well, that didn't mean Congo to use any unit any desert Jill Papoya medicine. This was a was. They made some.
Well, we might think that, okay, that I understand. Buddhas cannot wash my negativities and delusions. Buddhas cannot remove me, from suffering, holding my hands out. Okay, those are things I understand, But can't he give me his compassion and some inner qualities to me? Make that gift? Yes.
The Mabaka needs to talk was it. Again, a promise. Only needs the Sanjay committee the wrong Ranjuli Yepe, and and Panto Unit is only digital Pantus in it. Do you post it up on a poemers?
And Buddha said almost, didn't use those words, just get real. He said, I cannot transfer my realizations into your mind. Just get real.
Unless any Sanjay committee did not get any single condition, any robot cigarette, Ramna at the time, quoting is don't really tell you. And the third content language that the land the Chuni Demba temperature oranges, Kong and Sanjay committee, the Chuni, Chua maybe Chuni at any church needs you the Yanta Bakitani, the Duji Yansolani, and this associate quoting is don't really turn about the thing you become a total is number.
Well, now the only thing we could ask, if we are left with the question, is, okay, then what can Buddhas do? They can't wash my delusions, negativities. They can't hold my hands and keep me out of trouble and suffering. They cannot make the gift of their compassion and wisdom to me. So what can you really do? If we are going to ask that, so to speak, to Buddhas, then Buddha said, Chunyi tempa tempa troublejur. I could only teach you or show you what the truth is, what the ultimate reality or nature or phenomena is, correctly and unmistakably. So it is through that teaching, when you engage in the teaching and practice yourself and realize the truth, that is what will help you, and that's the way I could help you. By way of revealing the truth and ultimate nature of phenomena as it is, unmistakenly, when you realize that, you will be liberated.
That is sort of dinner goes to us. Dorjee and Gunto Tang, Elich Compatogo, Toji Lamte, Mono Truba maybe the Sanjikam de Tani, there running Dorjee Yamsalan, any so Tabata Tangi Compala, and the drug Takanang Goris.
So, in other words, what Buddha is saying is that, yeah, I understand that you want to have good rebirths, and you want to be liberated from samsara or cyclic existence. You want to be complete enlightened beings. What I can do is show you the true path leading to those goals, but you are the ones who need to cultivate this path and walk on the path, and this is how you get to enjoy the results.
That the Nikano in Tanta, Naranso, but you drew it any Naranso, Lengate Diaris.
Well, now what does all this mean for us is that cultivating Dharma or practicing Dharma is our number one responsibility.
That the Yaming got Kaditubers, that they have overs. Yaming got the church, Yamson got Kaditubers, that Lending is Tubans, that church, Yamnesia, any Lendeke, and then go to Wings. Carry is and they won't get Russiata. Go to Google. They go Papa, give a dreatic. Then go to get a lady, the any Nangatil, and some of the town, Lending looks in Tatina, Kadna, Sonsa, Digba Mali, Digba Papa, give us to get Lending cup skins and Tatina, and so she, and Palangi, Palangi, that name go to Gorescan.
Okay, if Buddhas can show us the true path leading to different goals that we are seeking, and we have the responsibility to cultivate those paths and walk on those paths, then what is the starting point of practice, if you ask? What does it mean to begin practice? Well, what it means is it says, Lende. The starting point of practice is to follow the law of karma and its results. In other words, that we need to study about law of karma and its consequences. So in that way, we have the knowledge. We can understand what are the kinds of karmas, negativities that we should not do, we should abandon. What are the positive karmas, the good actions that we should do or accumulate. So with that kind of understanding, we need to follow the law of karma accordingly. That is the starting point of practice.
Kangba maybe Chado Jayak and Santam Tamara, and the Kyoba maybe non Puyak Santoni. That Nishi Jamaras. Who carry in the Todd Tangible Gomatogo, tell any Toji jutting over the Sago Yormato, the Masapa, and then Jabuti Yama, Jim Mavin Jabuti, Chanto Chingu Yamara, you think come.
So in other words, that we cannot expect to enjoy the fruits of the results, without creating the necessary causes to enjoy those fruits, because that's just impossible. I'm sure you will agree with that. If you do not create the necessary causes and conditions for certain kind of results we are seeking, we cannot enjoy those results. We will not have those results. So metaphorically speaking, it is like, I don't mean, most of the people do this, but, some of us must be thinking that way, that, well, I like dancing so much, so I want to enjoy dancing, but the fact of the matter is we are amputated. We don't have the legs to dance. So what does it mean? I'm going to enjoy dance. Or that we do not have the wings to fly, but yet we want to fly. We want to experience what does flying mean, So that doesn't work. No, it's okay.
wish to do the dancing without legs, wish to fly in space without wings. What do you think? We should not, cannot do these things. We need, really it is, we need to resort of the Dharma practice. So that means we need really practice well, not only name, only sound. Really it is. We have lots of the really think of the Dharma practice through the sound. It's really it is. Try to make a experience. Very important thing. Including myself. I'm not talking to you. We are all everyone. Really it is. Should be. Okay,
I think that will do. Geshe said, we will go back to where we left last time, just to, I think, reiterate what Geshe was trying to say is we really need to be sincere in practicing Dharma, because we cannot put on a show. Dharma is not a technique for self-presentation, face management. It is really something we need to live by and experience, and that's important. Let's now go to where we left off in the text.
Honest. The passing to something the less one.
No.
Something
Now, as the great Indian master Adisha was answering the questions of his three great disciples, he was really explaining what are the best forms of six perfections. And I think we already went through what does it mean, the best form of giving or generosity, the best form of ethics, morality, the best form of patience or tolerance or forbearance, what it is. Now we need to talk about what is the best form of concentration.
Something you chose, and it low my is that Georgia the Ganam. Something you know, chose to the Garrison, low my is. That low my is a good much is a Garrison, something like sensate by Ingorwa. And those journey zones and it, Tochug, Togatan, Tochug, and it, Malepach, sensate by. The never that they chose to buy his gun.
According to great Adisha, the best form of concentration or samadhi, something, he simply put it as literally translating uncontrived state of mind. Now, what does that mean? Uncontrived means that we are not artificially doing something, right? That's the sense. So basically what he's saying is, cultivating single-pointed concentration and not letting our mind be distracted by or contaminated by what we call all kinds of disturbing conceptual thoughts, which could come in two different forms, in what we call examination and subtle investigation. So we should dispense examination and subtle investigation, but try to stay single-pointedly on a focus and remain in a very uncontrived state of a mind, and that is the best form of concentration.
Something that Mambu, something Mambu, even none that Tambo of the Carrison, only Tambo that he need Chago, that he need about the that he need any do Tangha, Ninga, that's something tangible and Yidavachi Chago.
Of course, there are many different forms of concentration or levels of concentration, but that which is like a foundation for many other forms of concentration is what we call the shamatha or calm abiding of mental quiescence, which is called shine in Tibetan. And shine or calm abiding is a foundation, concentration in both Sutrayana practice and Tantrayana practices.
다 신내증 어디서 가르쳤나? 신내증 어디서 가르쳤나? 아니 안돼다. same 다 남도스나 민도 언데지 니딩다 신고인이다 자. 신화도 거반이다 자외 다 센티버질 생그리스.
So what is shamatha or calm abiding? If you ask, it is a state of mind that is free of disturbances from laxity and excitement, and focuses single-pointedly on its object. So that kind of single-pointed concentration, free of laxity and excitement or dullness and agitation, is what calm abiding is.
다 신이게 신이도 터바이나 다 센티기 땡인지 터고요리스 또 터인선 다 소세 미발라 가리 미바 간데질 도스니 야비나야 안테 다 예네 유예네 마요버시니 유예네 마요버시니 미바 타가라네 데 터고요리스.
So once we have calm abiding, now we're able to direct our mind to whatever object or practice we want to direct it to, and it stays single-pointedly on that object or focus within that practice without wavering to some other objects or without being perturbed by other thoughts.
Something something that any that he need any send I want you that jabon against something send I want you jabo things. Yana yo miss move on to pie is a tie yin yogumaris. Yellow yo me. Since we jump Yana yo me. Re one for his yo me but re on what it is. And then move all apart tongue with Sena. And then cover move all a tongue in a Tagaran Doguris. Yana very tongue gave me paculan juice. Me was at the Razeta, me gave you a choice to do Marta, gave me Pokun and Youth Kanando.
Manjushri Lama Tsongkhapa, or who is also known as Rinpoche, states in his abbreviated or condensed version of Lamrim Duten in Tibetan, and as Geshe quoted the stanza from his memory, where Rinpoche tells us that calm abiding is, metaphorically speaking, the king who rules over the kingdom of mind, has control over our mind. And when we put our mind on a particular phenomenon or object, it sits on it immovably like a rock, like a great mountain, Mount Meru. It doesn't move at all. It sits single-pointedly on that object. But if we want to withdraw our mind from that object and direct it into positive actions and activities, it has the flexibility to be directed into all positive actions. So those are the benefits of cultivating calm abiding.
Ane nige ta shine de taba yina ane ndosho ne shige yina ane lam tu dela ta le labo ande chayong go ta kana yi ga so shige na shirim da zom zogol zan ta nge ba de shine de hode togu go.
So as I mentioned earlier, that calm abiding is, in a sense, the foundation concentration practice for developing all other great realizations qualities as described in Sudra and Tantra. And so in order to cultivate all, in order for us to practice effectively, calm abiding is needed from Sutrayana point of view. And of course, it's true also in Tantric practice. For us to be able to practice the generation stage of Tantra and the completion stage of Tantra, we need calm abiding to be able to really do those practices and be effective in what we do.
That Landong is a Tommy. Landong can any name of Vinyabo Sugar. Landong can name of Vinyabo Sugar. Landong can name of Vinyabo Sugar. And they Della and Chine China, and they Landong the told them a younger. Didn't do and then the thing. That did this one is then Shawalak. I get the moon. Kine Ore. Hine rather than Belhantonki, Yomo number job by Hejine, Tomari Hine Sal Shas, Canadua. This one that Hine rather than Belhantonkis, Hineke, Tobney, and the thing I need Alhanton, the Chabina, Hine rather than Belhantonki, then Yomo number job by Jongaris. The Sheba Shene, Tambo and in Hanton, when he needs Zagoris, he needs to have a Shagoris Canado.
Calm abiding is also, essential for us to cultivate what is known as special insight or vipassana, plangtong in Tibetan. Especially special insight which pertains to the ultimate nature of phenomena. Because once we realize the ultimate nature of phenomena, that realization of wisdom, special insight, it counteracts, it destroys our delusions within us. But to be able to have that kind of special insight, we need to cultivate calm abiding. Because when calm abiding facilitates special insight, the kind I just explained, then that special insight becomes very powerful to destroy our delusions. As great Indian Bodhisattva Mahasattva Shantideva states clearly, and Geshe quoted the stanza from his memory. So basically what Shantideva tells us that if special insight is augmented by calm abiding, then that can destroy completely delusions. By understanding that, one should first seek calm abiding. So in other words, if we are asking the question of calm abiding and special insight, which one should we cultivate first, go for first, then the answer Shantideva gives us is we should go for calm abiding first.
Tati Tandangi Kid to Kangal Lamrunkanani, Tantani, Laurel and Lucinata, and long time yet, Gassican Chola, the Yoris, set up the day long time at the Cubris, but indeed, that Larry, that she need Gomsit and some of that Larung Tagres. She need Gomsak Ne, and she need Gomtu, the Tomalo, Larung Tagres, Dinali, you are done dinner that Tiki Gaze, Santi Kimasum, Linden.
Although Great Adisha just only spoke very briefly, maybe about a line or a sentence, to answer the question, what's the best form of concentration, but doesn't give us details here, but I have tried to pull the resources from other texts, particularly Lamrim treatises, where things have been explained in great detail and extensively, and try to augment Adisha's answer here. So if we want to know more about what is calm abiding and special insight and how to cultivate them. In the case of calm abiding, where should we cultivate? What kind of environment is needed, suitable for cultivating calm abiding? What are the techniques to cultivate calm abiding and so on? Then we need to go back to Lamrim for detailed explanation.
Top troops at that nation Gomju and Duxi Yoris, Ganga Ani, Jaji Ponga, Dan Lamrin, Nandra like Inch to Yori, Yermuch Larin Chemundua, Zigandua, and Samanurta, Jake Jeva, that and the chance Ziguris, and then the duty came at huge Amaris.
Of course, I just could only explain very briefly here. I define in a very kind of general sense what calm abiding is, or shamatha is. But otherwise, in order to be able to experience calm abiding, we have to go through 9 stages of mental development. And how can we do that? It's by way of cultivating 4 types of attention and 6 types of powerful antidotes. So all those things have been explained very thoroughly in the Lamrims. And now there are many translations of the Lamrims, such as Liberation in the Palm of Your Hand by the great Tibetan master Geshe Dorjee, or the great Lamrim exposition of Manjushri Lama Tsongkhapa or Rinpoche in 3 volumes in English. So you can go and read, those Lamrims in order to know details about the calm abiding practice and special insight practice.
네, 사실 그건 타마디 혈압이 초 가르에서는 혈압이 초 강의에서는 혈압이 초 강의야 난지 매반이스다 레드가 난도 혈압이 초 가르에서는 강라 양스 난지 매반이스 다지 제선데 강라야 난지 매바 가르에서는 디인도 쇼도 다음에 또 혈압이 다 혈압이 초 주반이스 가는 거예요.
So let's move on. And Adisha explains that the best form of wisdom, Sherab Yichok, is to have no grasping at anything and everything. Kanglayang, to anything and everything, no grasping. Okay. So how can we have no grasping at anything? It's only when we cultivate the wisdom realizing selflessness.
다 가르에서는 나는지 매바다 나른 집안이부터 딱 응게 차거요. 그래서 나른 집부터 딱 당진래. 최다 딱 강사가 다스는 최다서 전주리시 기와시. 그래서 때 당지듯이 나른 집부터 딱 혈을 줘 강라양 나른 집은 매바인스. 같이 줘놔도 봐. 매바인스에서 담에 또 혈을 진짜 담에 또 혈을 딱 나든 집안이부터 딱 응게 차거요. 진짜 딱 담에 또 혈을 내 나든 집부터 바까네. 아니 디 로쇼데 다 동이 되는 거 저거 진짜 딩스 가능도 봐.
So what I'm really talking about here is, grasping at self, ngarzin in Tibetan, and non-grasping at self. These two are, opposite realities of phenomena, and they are not compatible with one another. And of course, there are detailed presentations on what is self-grasping or what are self-graspings, and how to counteract them, from different Buddhist schools of thought. And according to the highest Buddhist school of thought called Prasangika Madhyamika school, or Tenjur in Tibetan, the self of a person and the self of a phenomena are, identical in terms of what it is. That's just the same. For that matter, the selflessness of a person and the selflessness of phenomena are identical. Identical in the sense that there is no difference of coarseness and subtlety between the two selflessnesses. So when we cultivate the wisdom realizing selflessness, then that wisdom or understanding or realization, it helps us to let go grasping at self of a person and phenomena. So that's how that wisdom, it is an antidote, it counteracts grasping at self. So that's what I mean by self-grasping and non-grasping at self. They do not exhibit each other.
다 당진이부터 강사가 당지 다 죄지 당지 생인도 시 이 어레스 가는.
As I just mentioned, that there are two types of grasping at self. One is called grasping at the self of a person and grasping at the self of phenomena.
Voilà. Ta kuni pa shesu jirba shegina ande manjuban de kanando tangpor ngahi dala hinju chis. Ane tangbo ngase ngale tangbo nganzi binganzi ta ngale chanes. Ta diwa ta ngairwan zimi ta jita she ta jita she no she berta. Tangbo ane danzi bi dangzi she. हमारे कांसाक दांगसी कांसाक दांग ता ती ने ngai mingna sola mingbe ane church dancing check race kanando.
So if there are two forms of grasping at the self of a person and grasping at the self of phenomena, which of the two types of grasping arises first, if you ask? According to great Indian master Acharya Chandrakirti, in his supplement to the middle way or Madhyamik Avatar, he states, as Geshe quoted the stanza from his memory, at first, there arises grasping at I, or the self, and then there arises grasping at mind. And so that answers our question, which of the two types of grasping arises first. So first we grasp at ourselves as persons, and then we started to grasp at all the things we call mine, my eyes, my nose, my ears, my this, my that,
So that shesu jirba shin dusre mato gajal track yomares.
So although in terms of experience of the two forms of grasping at the self of a person arises first, followed by the grasping at the self of phenomena. But in terms of what these graspings are, as I explained, from a particular Buddhist school thought point, they are identical, because one of the grasping is not, subtler than the other.
Tan dinal kerej jo kangayang nganzi me pangin sumbat karresena ane ta kangayang ane pe chue kande chigine ya tela ane dagzi ba meba mepe ta dagzi ba me ti losho dame to bi kheret ta dame ngon ta ngon sun sin digindo an to bi kheret sungo yores ta te chos javangis.
So when Aditya says that having no grasping at anything is the best form of wisdom, what he is really talking about is if we have experienced the wisdom realizing selflessness, because only then, we will have no grasping at any phenomenon.
That only to be here around you say with touching about chambers. The carrier ngandu khoda ngaso donghi le ta dingi sin wal trogo yare te trowe ta nyembo za nyemos ta nyembo te ane tere ta mencho da men chol da chubanda te tongi ngaso to bi khere ta te rangi she tab she gores.
So in this context, we use these two terms, selflessness, dharma, and emptiness, tongi, as interchangeable, meaning the same thing. And as we often talk about, that we must cultivate the wisdom realizing emptiness as it is. Because, we need to be free from delusions or the two types of mental obscuration, delusions and obscuration to omniscient state. In order to uproot delusions from within our mind, there is no other way but to cultivate the wisdom of realizing emptiness. In order to be free from samsara, in order to be completely enlightened being, one must realize what is known as the middle path. One must realize the profound middle path. And we have, four major traditions in Tibetan Buddhism. And according to our ancient tradition called Nyingma, they talk about Dzogchen practice, the great completion practice, and that, that has to do with realizing the middle path.
That's some omitawa.
Realizing the profound middle path.
That is any that's such a any Kaju Shakin sugars. Sajak was that Sajak Motella, that Zokchile and Dotahani or the any Shakile and that Dohani or that the Kanjitan delusions in any.
And of course, Dzogchen practice can be presented from both Sutra point of view and Tantra point of view. But right now, what I'm talking about is from Sutra point of view, that it could refer to the profound or the profundity of the middle path. Then according to our Kagyu tradition, they may use the term Mahamudra, the Great Seal. Of course, that could be presented from both Sutra and Tantric perspectives, but according to Sutra perspective, so that again, comes back to the profundity of the middle path.
Such a tradition, Sumbe.
And according to the Sakya tradition, they talk about the non-duality between cyclic existence and nirvana, and that again, it has to do with the profundity of the middle path.
Ani Kong that Lama Dandero. So the Marida. Arenda,
And in the case of Sakya, they're clearly talking about the middle path, as Lama Tsongkhapa talks about the teaching of Great Master Rendawa.
Kanji, Samomi Tawasana, Shakin, Karishina, Ani, Dajak don't be to be any gun number to Sumbate, and then Gomoludu can do the Tevachitang, what the Guguris.
So whatever the terminologies one may use in different tradition, but the point I'm trying to make here is that the teaching on emptiness should have been originated, from historical teacher Shakyamuni Buddha, and that has been authentically elucidated by great Indian master Arya Nagarjuna. So if we follow that middle path, taught by Buddha, elucidated by Arya Nagarjuna, then that's what we're talking about.
And the Padin Dawata woman you want to soon do. Gomolu kept Lulin, Cheryl Chula, here Tom Metos. Gomolu, any Dajak don't make it to be soon be any. And a guy Goma and Gomoludu Sumbe, Tawati, Dilly and the Shuru Chubatella, and a Joanna did to be Tavio Maris Cannon. Gomoludu Church, Lulin, Shuru Chula, here Tom Metals.
As Acharya Chandrakiji clearly states in Supplement to the Middle Way, and Geshe quoted the lines from his memory, which clearly states that those who have fallen outside the system of Arya Nagarjuna's explanation of what emptiness is, as taught by Buddha, they will not have the peace of nirvana or liberation. So in other words, those who have fallen outside the system of Nagarjuna's elucidation of emptiness, they have no peace of nirvana. So in order to realize the view of emptiness, shunyata or sunnata, according to Pali, that as I explained to you before many times, that one has to understand what dependent arising means. As great Indian Master Ajahn Chandrakirti again states in his supplement to the Middle Way, and Geshe quoted the lines from memory, that with the reasoning of dependent arising, which is called Pratit Samutpat in Sanskrit, Tenjung in Tibetan, that one can cut through the network of wrong views. And so what that means is that, metaphorically speaking, the reasoning of dependent arising is a sharp weapon that can cut through the bushes and the plans of wrong views.
Ini tahu dah dadan jembi jawa cakap dah dangzing ke, ngacu jengking ngaran cucu koen damne jengking kita dangzing ke jawa ceri, dah dangzing ke jawa ti nyasi sana kita pakai bersebal kar gubur sana, ane tenju kerana dami tu berkira anjur cekuris, dami tu berkira anjur cekor kerana sana tenju ke tal tenis, sana demi tak tenju ke nis di khewasen ini, dami tu berkira anjur cekuris kanam.
So Geshe was trying to explain the Tibetan word called what does tawa mean. I translate as network. So it could also be translated as a net. So just as fish get caught up in a fishing net, so this is where they die. In the same way, we are caught up in the net of grasping itself. So in order to free ourselves from this kind of a bondage, so we need to understand dependent arising, and through that, what emptiness means. So once we realize emptiness as it is, then we are able to free ourselves from the net of grasping itself.
So what do you think
is a better tools to cut the net of grasping, scissors or sharp knives? Well, probably the only thing we need to be concerned with is, whatever tool we use, can it really cut the net and free us? So if it can do that job, does it matter whether it is scissors or knives or whatever? But to cut through the net of grasping itself, of course, we cannot use any kind of weapons, including scissors and knives or whatnot, but to cultivate the wisdom gone beyond, the wisdom realizing selflessness or emptiness. Because that's the only weapon that is effective. So we really have to understand the matter kind of deeply and what works and what doesn't work. Can make a sort of can be very narrow-minded. We heard that Chairman Mao, because he never believed in the existence of unfortunate states of rebirth. So he said, well, show me the hell. I'll bomb the hell and I'll destroy the hells. Well, sorry, can't do that.
Okay, that in an so don't you to be here that Gomni Julius Gormato, Melam Jenny, and this was in the Yamas, then never do Gomtan Julius Goris.
Yes, we need to cultivate the wisdom realizing emptiness, but how? Not, how if we ask through meditation practice. We cannot simply pray for the wisdom. We cannot say, okay, may I, realize emptiness, good prayer, but that's not enough. We cannot just simply, learn about it or talk about it. We got to, cultivate that wisdom through meditation. And I think that will do for today, and we'll stop there today. Chapter never chidan devachilia jamchuche. Dene Shuma de Pikapigasova Namjab Chidi Anakajala Sungorvas.
Anakajala Tagi then
Geshes again.
Only Hobaki Quran and the Chundil Pevre. Forget the candidate. science 从的多。
Also.
你配合这上就当的来有但对你现在下面呢电子来配过去的，我是对拿过去的。
In the day, temple is not how one word.
答应的，但是temple是给去这个。
Geshe Tsultim Gyeltsen.
啦。
Geshe Tsultim Gyeltsen.
签了哦，签了罗桑。罗桑这把子。罗桑不的，俺这把的点吧。
Geshe Tsultim Gyeltsen also. And then gengi di lamrim di tundani the guy samarwa again.
That's Quran subject correction Quran change man. Di that continue share kaya man.
Kasa di gengi danda sal hakbel lamrim di tundani the guy samarwa again.
Ore tanga peke dogo tatari.
Also. And then gengi danda karamitin shu di. Long sa gai. Tadi shu sagarwa again. Okay, I have a few announcements and prayer requests. So let me go to the announcements first. Next week, Geshe will not be here because he's invited to teach at the Namgyal Institute in Ithaca, New York, and also he will be giving a lecture at Cornell University. So in his absence, they will probably most likely be teaching by a visiting Geshe here called Geshe Lobsang Soba. He's from Sharjah, Loba House, and I think he has been invited to participate in, in conference on, meeting scientists and the Buddhist practitioners. And so, by the way, he's here, and so he will teach, whatever he wants to teach, any topic. He cannot continue my text. I won't. So he will, whatever topic he chooses, he will teach that. So next Sunday, Geshe will not be here to teach, but Geshe Lobsang Soba, Lobsang meaning noble heart, Soba means patient. So that's his name. Although I go against translating names, but there you go. The second announcement is, Geshe, for the next 2 weeks, the Wednesday Lamrim, discussion of the teachings will not be happening. So in other words, the dates are 19 and 26. The Wednesday Lamrim discussion groups, Geshe won't be, and I think the Lamrim discussions won't be there. Announcement number 3, which is just a re-announcement, by the way, that on October 30th, which is Sunday, the touring monks from Sharjah College will be offering long life prayer to our Geshe, requesting him to live long. So because of that, we will not have teaching in the morning, but we will have the long life prayer ceremony. It begins at the same time, 10:30. So you are welcomed to participate in the prayers. So those are the 3 announcements. If anything is unclear or not so clear, just check with Annie again, okay? Because you can't check with me. After this, I will be unplugged. And prayer requests. Mary Waters got a stroke and requested for prayers. And Rhoda Rand Cordner passed away, so prayers have been requested for these 2 individuals. No scan.
Ona tanga ranzu tara chuchi shi bi ke zaola teni sanji tembar bo ke taji girin de ne ba kyo jawe yino bi tsebe tin ji ba tamana chi risu ma chi bi tin ji ba tamana chi ku ji be temba de tu ji ndo zenda me me lu yu ma kyo ane chuji chi sho homon ji chunди ji shawa nam isam den ro chuji ane jite ji kam de da yendo min tu bi gu chota da hini tunchi lu chota da me me lu yu ma kyo.
Let us dedicate our collective marriage for the flourishing of Dharma, the source of benefits and happiness throughout the universe. May Dharma exist for a long, long time. May His Holiness the Dalai Lama and all other great holy masters live long and be successful in fulfilling their visions benefiting sentient beings. May spiritual communities and practitioners throughout the world remain healthy, harmonious, and be successful in fulfilling their spiritual goals. May this and other world systems be free of all kinds of unwanted pains and problems, and beings find peace, happiness, prosperity, and authentic spirituality. In short, we dedicate our merit for all kind mother sentient beings to be free from the fears and dangers of two types of mental obscuration, and may we all reach complete enlightened state quickly.
Tenzin Dorjee, Geshes Tenzin
Okay, you don't need to prostrate today. I think my tip on your Tibetan culture.